American dollar is burning, and it's burning. I see piles of money burning.
America is collapsing before our very eyes. Restaurants are closing their doors for good in my city at a record pace. They're blaming it on a slow season, but I think it's something else. You can't tell me the amount of abandoned strip malls that I drive by on a daily basis is normal. I know you've seen it too. All these places just get replaced with the capybara cafe de jour or a flower store to placate the masses, if you know what I mean.
I'm an American. I can barely keep myself alive. I'm living the American dream.
America's going to be the poorest country in the world, starting now.
U.S. economy is totally crashing.
Economics is ruthless. It doesn't care about your feelings, your politics, or your patriotic speeches. It only cares about numbers. And today, the numbers are coming home to roost. We're about to hear from American farmers who believe that trade wars would somehow make them richer, people who cheered when politicians promised to get tough on international commerce. Here's what actually happened. They got exactly what they voted for: tariffs, trade restrictions, economic nationalism, and now they're literally destroying their own crops because nobody wants to buy them. But here's the twist. The same folks who spent years screaming about no handouts are now lining up for government bailouts. The same people who mocked others for needing assistance are discovering that ideology doesn't pay the bills. This isn't about picking sides. This is about watching people learn the hardest lesson in economics. Arithmetic always beats campaign promises. Welcome to Mind Mirror. Let's watch reality crash into ideology.
We're just absolutely fucked as farmers, guys. Everything is so fucked, and I do not see anybody surviving this farm crisis that we're in. Guys, look, one of the best splorn crops that I have ever raised in my life. And because of the tariffs, China will not fucking buy it. And they are the only country in the world they are the only country in the world that buys splorn. And so now I'm literally just chopping it and blowing it on the fucking ground because it's fucking useless, it's valueless, there's nothing I can fucking do to it. I am going to need government assistance to make it through this fucking crisis until these tariffs end. Look, I've never raised a splorn crop like this, guys.
Hold up. Did this man just blame China for not buying his crops after we slapped massive tariffs on them? That's like punching someone in the face and then being shocked they won't have dinner with you? And splorn crop? Brother, we know you meant soybeans. But honestly, calling them splorn is probably more accurate at this point because they're about as valuable as a made-up commodity. Here's the reality check. China didn't stop buying American soybeans because they hate us. They stopped because tariffs made them 25% more expensive overnight. Basic economics, supply and demand, competitor advantage. Meanwhile, Brazil's farmers are laughing all the way to the bank. They've locked in long-term contracts with China, built new infrastructure, expanded production. They're not sitting around waiting for American farmers to get their act together. And now this farmer wants government assistance? The same government he probably spent years saying should stay out of business? The irony is thicker than Mississippi mud.
And this is just fucking heartbreaking to me. I don't know how I'm gonna survive. You know, Trump said he fucking loved us farmers, and here I am just blowing my splorn crop all over the ground. Hopefully he works a deal out where Antarctica and Mars will start buying this splorn and save the farmers. I'm sorry, splorn crop, but you're fucked.
39th crop. I started in 1986, the year I graduated high school. I could plant an acre of beans in 1986 for 30 bucks. It irritates me that you don't have the guts to acknowledge that the people do not pay the tariffs. I don't care if it's John Deere, Case, Caterpillar, all that stuff is outsourced overseas. And the guy that pays it is the guy that purchased it. I can buy a bearing for a combine, and it's made in Taiwan or who knows where. Parts have over doubled in the last year, if you can get them. The dealer at Marshall has a backlog for almost 4 months because they can't get parts because of Trump's stupid tariffs. I think agriculture has taken a heck of a hit on a lot of misinformation, and he is not helping the farmer. I mean, we farm about 3,500 acres. We are going to be so far in the red. When are you going to stand up for us instead of kissing his ass for these trade deals? And the tariffs. More so the tariffs than the trade.
Now, this is what I'm talking about. A farmer with 39 years of experience calling out the tariff lie directly. The people do not pay the tariffs. Exactly. The consumers pay them. The businesses buying those Chinese parts for John Deere tractors, they pay. Then they pass that cost on to, guess who? The farmers. This man just explained international trade better than most economists on TV. When you buy a bearing for your combine and it's made in Taiwan, you pay the tariff. Not Taiwan, not China. You. Parts have doubled in price. 4-month backlogs. And why? Because the same crowd that promised to help farmers decided to make all their equipment more expensive. It's like voting to tax yourself and then acting surprised when your taxes go up. The mental gymnastics required to still support policies that are actively destroying your business takes Olympic-level flexibility. This farmer gets it. He sees through the BS. He's living the consequences while others are still buying the lies.
So farmers in Arkansas, again, farmers around the United States are complaining that it's too expensive, that their farms are not going to survive, that their children and their children's children may not be able to take over the family business. Watch, and we'll talk about it.
5 or 30% of the farmers in this country, if they don't do something, it has to be done, and it's not just here, it's everywhere.
Farmers are making a cry for help before it's too late. Countless farmers gathered to speak to representatives of Arkansas leaders to share the urgency that something needs to be done about the current state of farming. Jake Tester was at the meeting and now joins us in the studio with more. Jake.
Many farmers spoke up at the meeting, and the message was straightforward. They need help, and they need it now.
Mr. Trump, you looked at me, sir, and you said, I love you. Mr. Trump, I need to see the fruit of your love.
Brother, the fruit of that love is your rotting soybeans. That's literally what you got. But let's be real about what's happening here. This farmer is learning that campaign promises and economic reality are two very different things. Politicians said they loved farmers. Great. Love doesn't pay bills or buy tractors. Here's what actually happened. China was buying $12 billion worth of American soybeans per year before the trade war. After tariffs, that dropped to practically nothing. They went to Brazil, Argentina, anyone but us. And now farmers are gathering in churches begging for help. The same farmers who probably cheered when politicians talked tough on trade. The same ones who voted against their own economic interests because they believed the rhetoric over the math. The man says he's never been as worried about his kids and grandkids carrying on the farm. Well, maybe next time don't vote for policies that destroy your industry's biggest market.
Farmers in crisis align way out the door of the Woods Chapel Baptist Church in Brooklyn as hundreds of farmers from not only Northeast Arkansas, but from across the state came to voice their concerns about the current state of farming. Representatives from U.S. Congressman Rick Crawford, U.S. Senator Tom Cotton, and U.S. Senator John Boozman's offices were in attendance to hear those concerns. Among those farmers in attendance was a farmer in Woodruff County, Chris King. He told me this was his 39th harvest, and he has never seen it as bad as this.
And I've never been as worried as I am now about whether or not my kids and grandkids will be able to carry on.
For King, the main problem starts with the fact that they can't sell for profit.
I just would like to see somebody help us get our markets back. We need our exports, and we just need to be paid for what we do. And that's not happening. And we're in real trouble.
But that is not the only issue. King's wife, Melissa King, and farmer in Biggers, Arkansas, Scott Brown, said they are struggling to afford the cost that is needed just to take care of the farm.
The prices that we're getting now are prices like they were when we were children, and what it costs for us to farm is astronomical now. I mean, the price of a combine when we were kids was, in the 20,000s, and now it's 100,000.
I farm 800 acres by myself. I can't afford any help. I farm with paid-for equipment. All my tractors are 50 years old, and I can't hardly make this deal work. How's the guys farming 5 and 10,000 with 20 hands and $1 million combines and $1 million drills going to make it work?
But for Brown, there is something that rounds out all the issues that they are facing, the tariffs.
I think the tariffs are the ice cream on the cake of a perfect storm. When you try to sell a product, okay, U.S. soybeans leaving New Orleans without the tariff to China are cheaper than Brazilian soybeans at the current market. But when you put the tariff on top of them, Brazilian beans are cheaper.
This farmer just gave you Economics 101 in one sentence. U.S. soybeans leaving New Orleans are cheaper than Brazilian soybeans without the tariff. But with the tariff, Brazilian beans are cheaper. That's it. That's the whole game. We priced ourselves out of our own market. And notice what he said about government checks. I don't know a farmer that likes the check program. Nobody wants to take taxpayer dollars. But here's the thing. When push comes to shove, they'll take the handouts, which is fine. I'm not judging survival instincts. But let's call it what it is. Welfare for people who voted against welfare for everyone else. The brutal honesty here is refreshing. This farmer knows exactly what happened and why. No blame shifting, no conspiracy theories, just cold, hard economic facts. More conservative supporters should listen to this guy. He's living in reality, not fantasy land.
So, how can this be fixed?
In the short term, they have no choice but to mail us a check. I don't know a farmer that likes the check program. Nobody wants to take taxpayer dollars, but nobody wants to go broke. Nobody wants to lose everything. Long term, we have to have options, markets, and places to sell our product.
So I wanted to stop there. Did you hear a Republican farmer in deep red Arkansas just tell you what a tariff does to American businesses, to American farms, to American livelihood? Now, I'm not saying, I'm independent, you guys won't believe us. You won't believe the Democrats, but we'll believe the people that voted the same way that you did and that still believe in the president that you believe in, but are disappointed in what he's doing. And again, they're willing to take a handout from the taxpayers, but they won't give handouts to those in need. Listen to that.
Boom. There it is. The narrator just called out the entire contradiction. They're willing to take a handout from taxpayers, but they won't give handouts to those in need. This is the core hypocrisy. When urban families need food stamps, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. When farmers need bailouts, save American agriculture. It's selective socialism. Government assistance is bad when it helps poor people in cities, but when it helps rural voters who supported the policies that hurt them, that's different somehow. And this farmer admits it straight up. They don't want to take taxpayer money, but they don't want to go broke either. I respect the honesty, but where was this pragmatism when other people needed help? The system these farmers supported said everyone should sink or swim on their own. Well, they're sinking, and now they want the same government they demonized to throw them a life preserver. That's not principle, that's convenience.
Yeah, so Disney's lost like $3.5 billion since they decided to bow to the wishes of Dementia Donnie and take Jimmy Kimmel off the air, which I think is absolutely fucking disgraceful. Because frankly, we can do so much better, y'all. Seriously though, fucking loving that shit for him. And this shit's important because this is how it's done. Money and power is all they care about. And every single corporation and institution is going to fall and capitulate to them unless the people stand up and make it not in their best interest. Our power greatly lies in how we spend our money. They always go for comedians and politicians first, and then anybody else that speaks out against the regime. And it's always the same fucking playbook. It's plain to see if you're paying attention. And anybody that's okay with this has zero idea what freedom of speech actually means and is a piss poor excuse for an American. And this shit's not going to fly, though. The more they try and do, the more that we're going to fight back and rise up against them. Just more fuel for the fire, you know? I love this shit. Keep it up. Fuck every one of these fascists. Do not fucking comply.
My name is Dylan Blaha, and this message is for every American who's scared right now. I'm a U.S. Army veteran and scientist who served in Afghanistan and Germany. We are living in unprecedented times. This administration is dangerously extremist. Dangerously radical. Because it's the government, many people have a false notion that whatever they do is normal. But it isn't. A lot of people don't understand what's happening in America right now. Racism, misogyny, and bigotry are rapidly becoming mainstream. Meanwhile, they're already threatening to silence political opposition. Our system is broken. Our economy isn't working for working people. Instead of fighting back against the system, which seems insurmountable, we fight against each other. They brainwash people into hating each other over small differences. Fear is their greatest tool. To all those who trash me in my comment sections, I have a message for you. You're being duped. They want you to hate your neighbor while they continue to rob you blind. In what world will deporting hardworking, undocumented immigrants lead to higher wages and cheaper groceries for you? It's time to activate our communities. And it's time to educate anyone you know who's willing to listen. We need to start sounding the alarm in any way we can. We cannot wait until the 2026 election. We are rapidly losing our rights and our freedoms. I know many of you are tired and scared. I'm tired too, but we need to stand together in this critical moment. It's now or never.
Look at what we just witnessed with the farmers. Instead of being angry at the politicians who lied to them about tariffs, they're mad at China. Instead of questioning the policies that destroyed their markets, they're blaming Democrats. In what world will deporting hardworking undocumented immigrants lead to higher wages? Exactly. Who do you think picks the crops, processes the food, works in the meat plants? These farmers are about to learn this lesson the hard way when their labor costs skyrocket and their workforce disappears. You can't deport your way to prosperity when your entire industry depends on immigrant labor. The veteran's right. The real enemy isn't each other. It's the system that keeps working people fighting over scraps while billionaires get tax breaks and bailouts. But will conservative voters listen? History suggests they'll blame anyone except the people actually responsible for their problems.
Imagine this. 1934, Jim Crow South. A world built to keep black and white folks apart, at each other's throats. And yet, poor farmers looked at each other and said, "We've got the same enemy. Let's fight together." That wasn't just rebellion. That was revolutionary. Sharecropping was just slavery by another name. Black farmers were cheated, trapped in debt. White farmers were barely doing better. They were told to blame their black neighbors instead of the landlords robbing them blind. Then the Great Depression hit, and the little scraps that they had left were gone. The government promised relief through New Deal farm programs, but the money never reached them. It stayed in the pockets of wealthy white landowners. So the people doing the labor, the hands in the dirt, the backs bent in the fields, they were left starving. And that's when something miraculous happened. In Arkansas, black and white tenant farmers walked into the same room, knowing it could cost them their lives, and built the Southern Tenant Farmers Union. Think about that. In the middle of lynch mobs, Jim Crow laws, and segregation signs, these people risked it all to sit shoulder to shoulder, all to say that we are stronger together. They weren't just planting cotton anymore. They were planting solidarity. And it spread from Arkansas to Mississippi to Texas to Tennessee. Thousands of the poor joined. People the system thought would never see each other as equals, suddenly chanting side by side for land, for dignity, for freedom. And the system panicked, of course. The landlords evicted them. They dumped families on the roadside. Police raided their meetings, they beat them, they locked them up. White mobs terrorized them. Black union members risked lynching every single time they gathered. And some actually paid with their lives. But here's the thing, the union didn't die. Even under all that fire, it just grew. Because once people tasted the truth, that their strength was each other, no amount of fear could make them forget that.
This historical lesson hits different when you see how divided we are today. 1934 sharecroppers, black and white, risked lynching to stand together because they understood their real enemy was the system exploiting them both. They saw past racial division to economic truth. Fast forward to today. We've got farmers voting for policies that destroy their own livelihoods because they've been convinced their enemies are immigrants, Democrats, or China. Anyone except the billionaires actually making the decisions. Those Southern tenant farmers figured out what our modern conservative crowd hasn't. The fight isn't left versus right, or black versus white, or rural versus urban. It's working people versus the system that exploits us all. The difference? Those 1934 farmers were willing to risk everything to see clearly. Today's voters would rather go bankrupt than admit they were wrong about who their real enemies are. If poor farmers in Jim Crow Arkansas could overcome decades of programmed hatred to unite against their oppressors, what's stopping us now? Pride? Propaganda? Fear of admitting we've been played?
The Southern Tenant Farmers Union wasn't perfect, but it was proof. Proof that even in the heart of white supremacy, poor black and white people chose solidarity over division. Proof that unity is the one thing that America's ruling class has always feared. That's why you don't hear about them in school, because their story isn't just history, it's a warning. And I'll leave you with this. If poor farmers in 1934 could risk their lives to see each other clearly, what's stopping us from doing it now? Remember, the fight has never been left to right.
Farmers getting destroyed by tariffs, workers losing jobs to automation and outsourcing, communities torn apart by economic desperation. But instead of uniting against the policies and politicians causing this mess, we're fighting each other. Rural versus urban, conservative versus liberal, red versus blue. Meanwhile, the billionaires who benefit from these divisions are laughing all the way to the bank. They don't care if you're red or blue as long as you're not looking up at them. Those Arkansas farmers in 1934 understood something we've forgotten. When you're getting screwed by the system, the color of your hat matters less than the emptiness of your bank account. The real question is whether we'll learn this lesson before it's too late, or keep fighting each other while the people actually in power keep picking our pockets. History doesn't repeat, but it sure does rhyme. And right now, It's rhyming with the sound of working people getting played by the same divide and conquer tactics that have worked for centuries. So what did we learn today? That consequences don't care about your campaign hat, that tariffs aren't paid by foreign countries, they're paid by you, and that voting against your own economic interests because someone promised it would hurt someone else more is the most expensive way to learn about basic math. But here's what gives me hope. Some of these farmers are waking up. They're calling out the lies, even when it's uncomfortable. The farmer who said people do not pay the tariffs, he gets it. The one explaining why Brazilian soybeans are cheaper now, he's living in reality, not rhetoric. The question is whether the rest of America will join them before we're all spreading our economic crops on the ground like worthless mulch. Because that 1934 lesson still applies. When working people unite around their common interests instead of fighting over manufactured divisions, that's when real change happens. The system wants us mad at each other, mad at immigrants, other states, other parties, anything except mad at the people actually calling the shots. So next time someone tries to sell you on policies that sound too good to be true, remember these farmers. Remember that arithmetic always beats ideology, and that the only people who benefit from working folks fighting each other are the ones picking all our pockets. Thanks for watching. Hit that like button if economic reality is your thing, subscribe for more truth-telling, and drop a comment about whether these farmers deserve the bailouts they're begging for, because this conversation isn't over, not by a long shot.